Okay, so in this video, we're going to go over how to subtract polynomials. Now, normally I would do addition and subtraction of polynomials in the same video, but there's enough nuances here that I think I'm just going to break out subtraction all by itself, okay? So you remember what polynomials are. Polynomial means many terms, and here we have a trinomial, 1, 2, 3, terms that are separated by additions and subtractions. And we're going to subtract this binomial, this 3x minus 2, right? Now, when you do this linear method, and I'm going to call this the linear method, okay? There's a couple of tricks that you can do. I always like to change my subtractions to adding the opposite. So let me show you what that actually looks like. I'm going to actually take the negative. It's like adding the negative 2x. Now, when I have the subtracting of the whole thing here, I'm going to I have to subtract every single one of the terms that follows, right? I just have to change it to its opposite. So here I'm going to say plus a negative 3x squared. And if you subtract a negative, it's like you're adding. So adding the opposite and makes that. All right, does that make sense? Now, what you do now is you have to gather the like terms. So now I'm going to look for all the ones that have the highest exponent. In this case, it's an x squared. So I've got a 3x squared, and it looks like it's all by itself, right? So I'm going to cross that out. Now I'm going to gather the x's to the first power. And notice that I have a negative 2x plus a negative 3x, which gives me a negative 5x, right? And I get to get rid of those. Now I do the same thing with the like terms again, which are the numbers in this case, which is a plus 1 and a plus 2, which gives me plus 3. And that should be my answer. Okay? Now that's called the linear method. You just line it up this direction, add the opposites, all right? And then make sure that you add the opposites of everything that follows when it's in between the polynomials. Now, the other method that I want to show you is called the stacked method, okay? So let me show you the stacked method. Now, in the stacked method, what I'm doing is I'm actually just lining up all the like terms. So all the squares go like in this column right here, okay? All the ones to the first power go into that column right there. All the numbers or the constants go into that column right there. And what you're doing here, right, is doing the same thing. I'm adding the opposite of these guys, and I'm adding the opposite of the one that follows. Now let's see how this turns out, okay? So here I I just bring this down now. Let me make sure I did everything correct here. Oops, I did something incorrect. Give me 1 second. I made that a negative, and it shouldn't have been a negative. There we go. Okay, so now when I'm looking at all the squares, I notice that they're all lined up so that there's only one x squared and it's 3x squared, right? So I'm going to add that up. Now I'm going to line all those up, and I see that I have a negative 2x and a negative 3x. It gives me a negative 5x. Now I say I'll add these up, and I've got a positive 1 and a positive 2. That gives me plus 3. And does it add up to be the same as the one above it? Absolutely it does. Okay? So in the stacked method, again, just line up all the like terms, right? And you can actually create gaps if you need to, as long as you keep them all lined up. Now let me show you an example of one that is not correct in the stacked method, okay? We'll call this example 3. Let's say I have something like 4x to the third plus 2x minus 1, okay? And I'm going to subtract x squared plus 2. Now remember, add the opposites, all right? So add the opposite. Now here I have to add the opposite of everything that follows. So I'm going to change that sign, change that sign. Let's line them up, So I've got a 4x cubed. Notice I don't have any x squared, so I'm going to create a gap. Now I've got a 2x, and then I've got a negative 1. And over here, notice I've got a negative x squared, but I don't have any negative x squareds above it, so I'm going to put it right there in the gap. Notice I don't have an x, and I do have a negative 2, so I'm going to say negative 2. And there we go. Okay, let's make sure the columns are all lined up. There's the 3's, there's the 2's, there are the 1's, and there are the constants, okay? And let's add that up again, and I'm going to get 4x cubed minus x squared plus 2x minus 3. Okay, I hope that was helpful for you.